9440.
4405.
944405. 1905.
All right, welcome back for another edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted, the program where you get to help make Calhoun County a better and safer place by helping us lock up the bad guys. I'm Chris Wright, along with our Chief Deputy, John Garlick. Good to see you, John.
Good to see you, Chris. Glad to be here.
All right, and another good week. Our viewers, every week, they always help us find bad guys, and this week is no exception.
It is not. No exception whatsoever. We had 5 people arrested, bringing our total count to, if we can get the thing on the screen, there it is, 4,172 people.
What, you're not keeping track of that number in your mind?
No. If it gets past 5, I lose track. I only use one hand to count.
So another good job, folks, and we'll have some more bad guys for you here in a few minutes and see if you can help us find some of them. I'm sure that you will be able to, because you have never let us down. We've always found at least one from the lineup with the help of our viewers.
We get a lot of good tips from people. You know, it may not even be on the lineup. It may be just other things they know are going on, but the public is really helping us.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about this week is National Police Officers Week.
It is. There's a lot of functions going on around the country, but especially here in Calhoun County. Every day there's a lunch for law enforcement down at the Oxford Civic Center. And we, law enforcement, really appreciate the effort put forward by the non-law enforcement folks that have gone way out of their way to organize special events and raise some funding to pay for these special events. And we really appreciate that. You know, it's not necessary to say thanks to us, but when people do, know that it helps. We really appreciate it.
And today we're doing the show on Tuesday. It's Fallen Police Officers Day, a day to remember the police officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty.
And I don't think there's anyone in law enforcement who can't say that they've been touched or have lost a friend as an officer somewhere in this country. I myself, you know, we all, Officer Sullivan, we all knew him, but when I went to the National Academy, within my class of 240 some odd people, within a year and a half of our graduation, 2 of our class members were killed in the line of duty. And it's happening all over the country. It's never good, and that number doesn't ever seem to go down.
And there are days as a law enforcement officer that you're out and your job is as boring and monotonous as it could possibly be. And then, just like that, one of those days can turn into a day that your life or someone else's life ends if you don't immediately make the right response.
Right. We ask a lot of our law enforcement folks. We ask them to do that on a daily basis, to go from sitting around driving your car, trying to pay attention to what's going on, and then all of a sudden you get that call and you have to go into an immediate mode of protecting society, protecting yourself. And yes, life and death decisions are made in exactly that fast. You don't get a whole lot of time to sit there and go, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. And you know, we want our guys to go home at the end of the day, and we want people to be safe and behave. It just seems like the society as a whole is misbehaving more. I don't know. It's a strange time to live in.
It certainly seems that way to me, because I've got a teenager in the house. But
yeah. It seems like the teenagers of the last couple of generations have stayed teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But anyway, we do appreciate all of our law enforcement officers, and especially remember and memorialize those who have given their lives in the service of protecting us all. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the first half of this week's lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
And welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. First up on our lineup this week, Danita Bundrum. Miss Bundrum, last known to be living in Anniston, she's wanted for assault third. And take a look at Antonio Andrews. Mr. Andrews, last known to be living in Oxford, he's wanted on bond revocation for possession of controlled substance and possession of marijuana second. And this is Mary Beth Endress. Miss Endress, last known to be living in Mumford. She's wanted on bond revocations for possession of a controlled substance, possession of marijuana second, possession of drug paraphernalia, and failure to appear on possession of controlled substance, possession of marijuana second, and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. And take a look at Michael Freeman. Mr. Freeman, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted on a failure to appear for theft of property first. And this is Eric King. Mr. King, last known to be living in Piedmont, he's wanted on failure to appear for child support and non-payment of child support, the face of a deadbeat dad. And last up for the first half of our lineup, Robbie Smart. Miss Smart, last known to be living in Piedmont, she's wanted for failure to appear on use and possession of drug paraphernalia. And that's it for the first half of our lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show.
All right, we'll have some more bad guys for you here in just a few minutes, but it's time for the guest segment of the show, John.
The guest segment, we have with us the infamous Fred Smith.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Great, how are you?
Great.
With the Community Foundation, we just had the Out of the Shadows Summit last week, trying to improve awareness and understanding of mental health here in the area. How did that go?
It went very well, and of course the Community Foundation, we are one of the sponsors, and we're glad to be a partner with the Out of the Shadows yearly. It's turned into a yearly event. John, also one of the committee members that assists with the hosting of that day.
So what were some of the takeaways from the event? Because we had a good crowd there, I know, but obviously a lot more people that weren't there. What are some of the things that happened at the summit that you think are going to be impactful for Calhoun County?
I think it's going to be very impactful because the awareness that we have to keep the conversation going. Even though May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we host the conference one time per year, but yet what we're dealing with in our communities, it lasts much longer than that. So the breakout sessions, the keynote sessions that we were able to be a part of, it really informed us as consumers, as professionals, as volunteers, as partners. It really informed us of the depth of the issue of mental health awareness in our community, in our state, and in our nation.
Commissioner Beshears was the keynote speaker in the morning, and she laid out for us kind of her take and direction for her department and for the state, and it's focusing on crisis intervention, which is a big deal. We don't have enough treatment beds in the state of Alabama, and we don't have enough crisis beds to take care of people that are on the street immediately in crisis, and then the beds to transfer them to. So we're working on the crisis beds. Commissioner's working toward finding a solution to that, and we have some examples up in Huntsville. There's a good example, and we're hoping to work together to bring some of that down to Calhoun County.
And that's why we're such an advocate for this particular topic as a foundation, because the health and the wellness of our community is very high on our priority list as a part of our strategic plan. And so being able to be a part of the solution and having like-minded people in the room that are all talking about solution-oriented goals and ideas was very, very good for the community.
Of course, mental health is an important issue for people through all stages of life, but as our population ages, we've got a lot more people getting into their senior years than we've ever had before and living longer, and sometimes the mental health doesn't stay as long as the physical health, does it?
Yes, and then when you look at it too, it's the statistics are staggering all across the board, from youth to children to young adults to adults, and then to our senior population. You find that there are statistics out there, and it really shows us that no age group or bracket is untouched by mental health illness. And so being able to be a part of a day and a group of people that are working to destigmatize what it means to have a mental illness here locally, and then again, statewide, and then eventually nationally, is just a rewarding experience.
Okay. We got to drop that stigma so that we can have family members and consumers feel that they can get access to treatment and care. The stigma prevents them from going to where they need to go to get treatment and care, and then we have to work on having, better access to medication and therapy, better standards of care, and of course better treatment beds. But yeah, mental illness as a brain disease, it seems to be more prevalent. It could be more easily identified, or it seems to be more prevalent, but there's a focus on identifying it earlier, almost before you're born, if you're at risk of some brain disease, and then identifying it in the early years of school in order to have some interventions that help the family and the person who has the brain disease to learn to cope, have better coping skills so they can be successful in life. It's more prevalent. It's a tremendous problem. We just got to work on it.
Often we know something's wrong, but we don't know what's wrong, and we don't know how to find out what's wrong. So we need to do a better job of that, and the earlier the better. We need to take a quick break, but we got some other things coming up that we want to talk about as well, and we'll do that when we come back here after the next half of this week's lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
And welcome to the second half of our lineup. First up this half, John Matthews. Mr. Matthews, last known to be living in Talladega. He's wanted on a probation violation for theft of property second. And meet Kelby Combs. Mr. Combs, last known to be living in East Avoga. He's wanted for failure to appear on possession of controlled substance, possession of marijuana second, illegal possession of prescription drugs. This is Jerry Sanford. Sanford, last known to be living in Piedmont. He's wanted for failure to appear on use and possession of drug paraphernalia, resisting arrest, reckless endangerment, and attempting to elude. And we'd like you to take a look at Amanda Ayers. Miss Ayers, last known to be living in Weaver. She's wanted for failure to appear on illegal possession of a debit or credit card. And please meet Kyle Sharpton. Mr. Sharpton, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance and obstruction of justice by using a false ID. And this is Donald Pritchett. Mr. Pritchett, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted on a possession of controlled substance ×3 and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. And last up in our lineup this week, Jacoby Patterson. Miss Patterson, last known to be living in Talladega, wanted for failure to appear on theft of property third. And that's it for our lineup this week. If you know the whereabouts of these folks, please give us a call at Crime Stoppers. That number is 256-238-1414.
All right, we'll have the Crime Stoppers segment of the show coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk about some unsolved crimes that maybe you can help us with. All right, now we've got Fred Smith with us from the Community Foundation. We've been talking about the Out of the Shadows Summit, which was a great success last week, but now let's move forward. We've got a new grant project that's coming up, don't we?
We do. It's called Open Spaces, Sacred Places, and it's in the final stages of us revealing to the community the funds, or those that have been selected rather to be a part of this particular grant process. In 1920, Susie Parker Stringfellow left a grant, which is responsible for what we know today of the Stringfellow Health Fund grant process.
100 years ago. You remember that, don't you, John?
I do. I was there for the original signing of the.
Yeah, and so there was a process that took place, and as a foundation, we grew from that initial will through different stages and different seasons to what we know eventually today as the Stringfellow Health Fund grant process. But we had an opportunity to meet and to find out about an organization in Maryland called the TKF Foundation, and they have a concept called Open Spaces, Sacred Places. It's a very unique concept in which they develop parks and spaces and green spaces outdoors so that people can have a place to go in, to relax, to reflect, even if they want to remember somebody that has passed on. And during the time that I joined the Community Foundation close to 2 years ago, we were thinking about how we would be able to remember the gift that Susie Parker Stringfellow gave, because out of that gift since 1999, we have given over $8 million to our community through grants.
Just since 1999.
Just
Wow,
since
that's amazing.
1999. And so we service 9 counties here in Northeast Alabama. And out of those 9 counties, we wanted people in the counties to be able to know her name, her legacy, and what it means to our community. So we decided to have an opportunity to speak with the TKF Foundation, and they backed us 100%. They said that it would be wonderful if we were to use the concept. And so what we've done is we've kind of used the model, but we've geared it towards our communities. And so where we are in the process, we have organizations that have submitted grant applications, and we're actually just about 2 days away from actually announcing those that will be awarded the $10,000 grant applications. We have them in all 9 counties. That's the great thing. And so we actually have some in Calhoun County.
All right. So a lot of folks are going to be very excited here in a couple of days.
Yes, and it's great because even as we were talking about Mental Health Awareness Month, it's also a place that encourages mental health awareness, because it shows that nature is a part of the healing process of the human.
Study after study
body.
after study continues to show that just getting out and being in nature, whether it's just beside a couple of trees or in a beautiful, lush park or in a forest, however much, it does improve our mental health.
Oh, it does. In fact, I've taught this in stress relief classes. If you go out and just look for 20 seconds at the clear blue sky, it resets your brain chemistry a little bit. I mean, it's amazing. Just 20 seconds staring at the blue sky. Not the sun.
but so you can see where everything that we're doing basically works hand in hand. So we're very intentional on the projects and grants that we fund. We want them to have an impact in our community. And so the Open Spaces, Sacred Places, what was really appealing to us was it had a long-term value, and our communities would be able to receive long-term benefit from them. So each of the 9 counties will have an open space, sacred place. Some of the designs are more elaborate than others. But one thing would be the same across the board, is that it will be a benefit to the community.
Awesome. Well, Fred, thank you very much for your time, and hope you have a great week making those announcements. That'll be fun.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll be right back in just a few moments. We'll have the Crime Stoppers segment of the show and our Crazy Criminal of the Week on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, where we ask you to help our investigators with the following cases. First up on your caseload, on May 5th, an unknown person broke into a home on Kirksey's Bend Road. The home was vandalized and miscellaneous items were stolen from there. And on May 6th, the 1999 Toyota Camry was stolen from a residence on Scarborough Lane in Anniston. And then on May 7th, someone broke into a vehicle parked on a residence on Malia Way in Alexandria. Michelle Coor's purse with contents including medication was stolen from that vehicle. And also on May 7th, a vehicle located on Moana Drive in Alexandria was broken into. They got away with a high-point pistol. That's it for our caseload this week. If you know any information about these cases, please give us a call at Crime Stoppers. That number, 256-238-1414. Remember, we want your information and not your name.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
All right, our Crazy Criminal this week, John, is Discovery Wildlife Park in Canada.
The whole park?
They're in trouble for taking one of the bears out for ice cream. We actually have video here. Now,
Aww.
as far as I'm aware, there's not any statute that makes it illegal to take a bear out for ice cream, but they're in trouble because they didn't notify the wildlife authorities. As long as the bear is on the zoo property, everything's good, but when they take the bear off of zoo property, they're supposed to let the authorities know, so just in case he attacks people at an ice cream parlor or something.
Well, that guy doesn't seem very scared at all.
No, he doesn't.
Like, have some ice cream.
No arrests were made, but the bear is in certain custody.
And I think the other animals are protesting.
Yeah. All right. That's all the time that we have for this week. We'll be looking for you again next week, but hopefully not in the lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.